Okay, so sorry I couldn't be here with you today, but we can still go over what the plan was for today was to go through and take a look at how to write one-step equations given a word problem. So the tools you'll need are a highlighter and a pencil, so that we can highlight our important facts and help us navigate through. All right, so go ahead and follow along with me, and feel free to pause the video when you see it necessary. All right, so first step, you want to make sure that you're going to read through the problem. You want to highlight and look for those keywords that signify that you're going to be doing certain operations, like when we did with translating. All right. Also, when you're going to identify a variable, the variable is something that we don't know. That tends to be your question. The question is usually something that we're trying to find. So that's going to help you identify what your variable is. And writing the equation is going to be a little bit tricky sometimes because we have a tendency to automatically know what to do. So we kind of have to think a little bit backwards in these cases. So we're going to break it down into showing all of these steps for approaching a word problem. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the morning temperature is negative 7 degrees and is expected to increase to 31 degrees later in the afternoon. How many degrees did the temperature increase from the morning until afternoon? All right, well, I'm going to take my highlighter there. And when you see the question word is how, that's where you're starting to figure out what the unknown is. So it's how many degrees it increased. Okay, so that's going to represent what my variable is. So I'm going to use D for degrees, and it's going to stand for the degrees increased. Okay, and the reason we want to identify what it means is so that way we can understand when we get the number, what did we actually find. All right, so let's go and write an equation. So going back to the problem, it says the morning temperature is negative 7. So this is where I'm starting. So I'm starting at negative 7. And it's expected to increase. Remember, so if it's expected to increase, that means that, again, we can highlight that word, increase. That means I'm going to add to it. But I don't know how many it's going to increase, so I'm going to put my D. And the final result is the 31. So it's going to get to this point. So that's going to give you 31. So we've set up our equation. So here's our starting point. We know it's going to increase, and the final result is going to be 31. So now we're going to take that equation, we're going to rewrite it, and actually solve. So negative 7 plus D equals 31. Right? Draw in your railroad tracks. Okay? And now, again, if you want to highlight your variable, because that's what we're trying to get all by itself. So I can see that it's a negative 7. I'm adding a negative 7. Well, you could think of it as subtraction, but we can just say, well, what's the opposite of negative 7? That would be plus 7. So I'm going to do plus 7 to both sides. This shows the balance. That makes a 0 pair. So I'm left with D on the left side. 31 plus 7 is 38. Now this, again, this is the importance of the label. This is how many degrees it increased. This is not the final temperature or an actual temperature. So when I go to answer this question in a complete sentence, that's why this part is important. So again, how many degrees did the temperature increase? So we're going to answer in a complete sentence. The temperature increased 38 degrees from the morning. Okay? Word problems require word answers. So some sort of description. The best way to do it is the complete sentence. So it clearly shows that we answered the question. All right? Okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. Cameron earns $19 per hour refereeing soccer games. If she made $228 in a weekend, how many hours did she referee soccer games? All right, I'm going to go back one more time and just read. $19 per hour. Well, I know that means 19, that's per, and that's times the number of hours. I might not know how many hours. This 228, that's a total amount because it's telling us that she made that, so that would be an end result. Here's our question, how many hours? Okay, how many hours? That's our variable right there. Okay, so I'm going to use H for hours, and the hours were spent refereeing. Refereeing. I'm not really sure. Yep, I guess that's the word. Okay, so now we're going to write an equation. Well, I kind of already did it because of the keywords up here. So I've got, she gets 19 per hour. So 19 per hour. And I want that to result in 228. Okay. All right, so I've got my equation. And I'm going to go ahead and set up and solve. 19H equals 228. Railroad tracks. Identify my variable. I see that I'm multiplying by 19, so I'm going to divide both sides by 19. Those are going to cancel out. H equals, all right, I'm going to do my messy math off to the side. 19 goes into 22 once. 19 goes into 38 twice. So I can see that she worked for, I got H equals 12. Again, go back up to what you said it represents. Okay, so I know that H means hours of refereeing, so now I can answer in a complete sentence. How many hours did she referee soccer games? She refereed for 12 hours. Okay, making sure you've got the number and what it represents in your final answer. Okay, all right, what I'd like you to do right now is to go ahead and pause the video and try number 3. When you've worked through the steps, go ahead and press play and see how you did. All right, let's see how you did. Did you get $45.23? Okay, now the more important part is take a look at your process. How does your work compare to mine? Sometimes what I see students doing is writing an equation that might have looked something like this. $62.58 minus $17.35 equals M. While that's not really wrong per se, that's actually, you've already started doing some of the work. And again, like I said, this is really tricky. So you want to think about which number is your end result. And that's what needs to go on the other side of the equal sign. And then you, again, because our whole goal here is to set up a one-step equation, we want to have something happening to the variable, right? So we're trying to create, like imagine I don't give you the end result. Imagine I just say he made $17.35 before lunch and then he made a certain amount after. So write an expression that represents that and then you're setting it equal to that end result. So again, when you're going through these, you want to have your variable and something happening to it to help you with writing the equation. All right, I'm going to give you one more. Go ahead and try number 4 on your own. Pause the video, and when you're ready to check, you can go ahead. If you want, I'm going to go ahead and I'll come back on in just a second to show you steps 1 and step 2 to see if you're in the right spot before you keep on going. All right, do a quick check. How did you do with getting the variable and getting the equation? Okay, again, look at those keywords in there. It even said an unknown number. That right away is our variable. It also said how many M&Ms. And we have divided by 16. Now you can write it this way. Normally when I've got an algebraic expression to I'm writing with division, I will set it up looking like a fraction. But if you wrote it this way, that is okay as well. All right? Okay, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and solve this problem. All right, you should have gotten 224 M&Ms. I forgot to highlight my variable there. Remember, the opposite of dividing is multiplying, so those sides would cancel out, and we have 14 times 16. You can see I did my messy math off to the side, and I got M equals 224. My final answer is in a complete sentence. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the back. All right, I'm going to do this one with you, and then I'm going to ask that you try 6, 7, and 8 on your own. Once you finish those 3, you can go ahead and restart the video to see how you did with these problems. Okay? All right, so for number 5, again, reading through the problem, 3/4 of. Okay, as soon as I read that, I saw a fraction. 3/4. And what does that word of mean, especially when it's next to a fraction? That's right, it means to multiply. So it says 3/4 of the apps. Okay, that gives us, well, we're taking 3/4 of what? Well, we're not really sure right now. So I'm going to put in an A. Maybe I'll if I keep reading, I'll figure it out. But right now, I'm not sure how many apps. So 3/4 of the apps on Haley's phone were free. If she has 28 free apps, now again, notice this apps is out of her total. But this one says that she has 28 that are free. And going back, so 3/4 of all of her apps are free. So this keyword were, it's like saying is, you just past tense. So that's an equal sign. Were and is, free. Okay? So that is building our equation right there. We got a keyword there. So we have 3/4 of, and as I'm going through, I can already see an equation forming. So here's the question. How many apps does she have on her phone in total? Okay. Well, again, if we go back, we can already see that we have a variable set up for how many apps we're looking for. All right, so we're going to say A equals total apps. We don't want to just say apps because there's a difference. There's free and then there's how many she has in total. All right, so now my equation. As I was doing it, I already formed it. So it's 3/4 of means multiply. A equals 28. All right? So now let's go back and do the equation. 3/4 A equals 28. All right, so we talked about this, and we said that, yes, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. But when you're dividing by a fraction, we end up doing keep, change, flip, which means we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by the reciprocal. And that makes sense because now look, we can cross out those numbers to show that they cancel. But don't forget to do the same thing on the other side. So I get A equals, well, I'm not ready to do this math. I'm going to do my messy math off to the side. 28 over 1 times 4 over 3. Okay, I get that's 32, that's 8, that's 112 divided by 3. Still got to do my messy math. I'm not 100% sure here. 3, that goes in 3 times. That goes in 7. And I got a remainder, and that's okay. Let's just kind of take a look at it. I'm going to make sure I just double check my math, because sometimes when I get a remainder like this, it doesn't really make sense to have part of an app. So I'm just going to make sure, again, that I've done my math correctly. I'm going to double check my math. 28 times 4, because I did that in my head. 2 times 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, 112. All right, so it just didn't work out evenly, and that's okay. Don't freak out. We can have partial answers. We just have to learn how to interpret it. So remember, when we're dividing, you can take your remainder. So we get 37 and 1/3. Now, as you're watching this, maybe you're like, Ms. Pariseau, I see your mistake. If you find it, just message me. I'm pretty sure I checked my work here. All right. So can you have 1/3 of an app? No. So that means that we're going to interpret it as she's probably got 37 here. Okay. All right, so that seems like that's going to be my answer. How many apps does she have on her phone in total? So Haley has 37 apps on her phone. Okay? All right, your job is to finish 6, 7, and 8, and then check back in to see how you did. Okay, There are your final answers. Hopefully you did well. Don't forget to go to Edmodo.